This series is based on a true story. Nora and Dean Brannick, together with their children, daughter Ellie and son Carter, arrived to view the house at 657 Boulevard. The family is planning to move in the near future. Nora is thrilled with the house. It is so spacious, although it lacks coziness, that can be fixed. Other potential buyers are also attending the viewing. The couple encounters Pearl Winslow, the president of the local Historical Preservation Society, and her intellectually disabled brother, Jasper Winslow. Nora also runs into her old acquaintance Karen Calhoun, whom she has not seen since their college days. Karen is a realtor, and she is the one handling the sale of this house. Carter is intrigued by the dumbwaiter. It used to be used to move food between floors. The boy has never seen anything like it. Ellie in turn is upset that after moving to the suburbs, she will see her friends less often. Karen shows Nora the rooms. Seeing how much his wife likes the place, Dean declares that they are buying this house. Karen says that besides them there are 2 other offers on the house, so they will need a strong loan. Dean tries to figure out where to get the money, because the bank would never approve such a large loan for him, considering his bankruptcy 10 years ago. He considers making as large a down payment as possible, using all their savings, stocks, retirement funds. This way the loan will not be as big. 6 weeks later, the family is already moving into their dream home. Dean is very pleased and proud of himself. They are still settling in. Their neighbors, a married couple, Maureen and Mitch, watching the movers carry the Brannicks' remaining belongings, say that they have a problem. Nora is delighted, although she never imagined she would live outside the city. The woman thought that after leaving New York her career would fade, but on the contrary, her ceramics exhibition at the gallery is selling very well. The couple believes that a new chapter is beginning for them. Ellie, unpacking her things in her room, suddenly hears music coming from somewhere upstairs and asks her parents to check. But when they come, the music is already gone. Noticing that his daughter has put on lipstick, Dean asks her not to do that anymore. She is not even 16 yet. At 5 in the morning, the man wakes up for work as usual. He does not see the front door open as if by itself. While making coffee, he is startled as Jasper suddenly appears with their mail. Nora is sure she locked the door. Among the mail, Ellie finds a strange letter from someone in the neighborhood, stating that the house is almost 100 years old, and there has always been someone watching over it. The unknown sender claims that he is currently the watcher. Neither Dean nor Nora show the children that the situation truly frightens them. The watcher knows they have 2 children, and in his letter he asks whether they plan to have more. He also says that the family must fill the house with fresh blood. Who is he? Hundreds of cars pass by every day. He could be in one of them. The couple goes to the police. Detective Rourke Chamberlain tells them not to worry, because Westfield is the safest town in America. Nora insists on handwriting analysis and taking DNA samples from the stamp. The detective agrees, warning that it will take several weeks. In any case, until the DNA test is ready, the police will patrol the Brannicks' house every few hours. In general, the detective promises to do everything possible, since they worked so hard to get this house. The couple wonders how Chamberlain knows that. Later, Dean reproaches Mitch and Maureen for trespassing into his yard. The couple in turn expresses their displeasure that his daughter plays the piano too loudly. Trying to remain polite, Dean repeats that they have no right to interfere on someone else's property. Maureen says with irritation that her arugula has grown over the fence onto his side, following the movement of the sun. But it is her arugula, so she will cut it, even if someone does not like it. The woman came through a hole in the bushes that has been there for 50 years. Stepping closer, Maureen whispers to Dean that if he were kinder, they could be friends. But now she will be watching Dean for a different reason. While playing tennis, Karen asks Nora why they bought their son a ferret. Nora replies that it was a reward for the move. The transition was not easy for the kids. After that, the women go to lunch together. Karen explains to Nora that a lot depends on how they present themselves in Westfield. Any woman in Nora's position could only dream of a house and a life like this. Nora admits that they are not actually that wealthy. For 10 years, Nora and Dean had been trying to recover from failed investments. Marriage is not easy. In private, Nora tells Karen about the threatening letter. She thinks it could have been competitors for the house, and asks Karen to find out who else submitted offers. Carter is thrilled with his new pet. Ellie meanwhile is irritated by her father's constant criticism of her clothes and appearance, which he considers too provocative. Carter wants to give the ferret a ride in the dumbwaiter, but as soon as the door opens, the boy sees Jasper inside and screams loudly. Dean, furious, throws Jasper out of the house. His sister Pearl apologizes to the Brannicks, saying that all previous owners over the past 60 years allowed him to ride the dumbwaiter. Dean will not tolerate intrusions into his home. He declares that he intends to dismantle the dumbwaiter. As president of the Historical Preservation Society, Pearl cannot allow that. According to her, every house, every tree, is an integral part of this community. Dean has no intention of listening to this nonsense any longer. Before leaving, Pearl says that from now on she will be watching them. The next morning, Dakota from a private security company shows up at their doorstep. The couple realizes that without a security system they are not safe in this house, considering the strange behavior of all their neighbors. Nora notes how young Dakota is. He recently turned 19. Seeing Ellie swimming in the pool, the young man cannot take his eyes off her. They exchange smiles. Dean, watching from the window, clearly does not like it. At night, Carter's ferret escapes from its cage and starts running around the house, when suddenly someone grabs the poor animal. In the morning, the boy finds his pet dead and screams. His parents immediately call the police. It is obvious that someone was in their house during the night. Chamberlain says that during the night a patrol car drove past their house 3 times, and nothing suspicious was noticed. But he promises to make sure that from now on a patrol car passes their house every hour. Ellie is increasingly irritated by her father's remarks about her bright lipstick and everything else, while Dakota on the contrary compliments her lipstick. Today Dean comes home late from work. Carter still does not leave his room, shaken by the death of his pet. The boy wants to be sure that his father will protect them. Ellie plays the piano. It is a rainy, overcast day. Maureen and Mitch, standing right by the garden hedge, have no intention of putting up with it. That same evening Karen drives past the Brannick's house. The next day Nora cannot reach Karen and leaves her a voicemail, asking whether she has found out anything about the other offers yet. Nora also wants to share some good news with her. She has been accepted into a country club. Meanwhile, Dean finds a new letter from the Watcher in the mailbox, who already knows the names of the Brannick children, their habits and their daily routine. Panic-stricken, Dean runs around the property and through the entire house, from top to bottom. In the letter, the Watcher writes that he has been watching this house for the past 20 years, and that the previous family sold it at his request. The house at 657 Boulevard is his obsession, which means the Brannicks are now his as well. Greed, according to the Watcher, brought the last 3 families here, and now it has brought them too. Welcome, he writes. The couple goes to the police station again. They is convinced it is Jasper Winslow. But the detective does not think so. After Dean threw Jasper out of the dumbwaiter, he has not left his room for 5 days. At least that is what Pearl says. However, the couple continues to insist that the police check all the neighbors, including Mitch and Maureen. Chamberlain only smiles and says that those 2 are just clowns and pose no danger. One thing is clear, the author of the letters wants the Brannicks to sell the house and move out. They should install surveillance cameras around the property and hire private detective. The police cannot guard the house all night at taxpayers' expense. Chamberlain even offers to recommend a private detective. Dean meets with Theodora Birch, who is willing to take the case. The primary task is to find out what the Watcher wants. For her services, the woman charges $100 an hour. Dean rushes to end the meeting, saying that he needs to discuss it with his wife and that he is already late for work. Birch is willing to cut her fee in half. The woman admits that she has liver cancer. She is a recovering alcoholic. But Dean still does not rush to agree. At home, after discussing everything, the couple decides they have no choice but to hire Birch. Nora is still afraid to spend the night there. Besides, the dust from the renovations is worsening Carter's asthma, so she decides to stay at a motel with the children. Dean, however, plans to remain at the house to keep everything under control. This will continue for the next couple of weeks. Since their budget is limited, the couple books one of the cheapest options. Still, Nora is fine with it, because it is safer for the children anyway. After making sure his family has checked in and settled, Dean returns to the house where they were supposed to begin a new chapter of their lives. But someone clearly wants to stop them. In the middle of the night, the doorbell rings, immediately waking Dean. But when he opens the door, no one is there. At the same time, music starts playing from a room upstairs. The man goes to check. No one is there. At that same moment at the motel, Nora receives a call. She picks up and hears nothing but heavy breathing on the other end of the line. Nora calls her husband and asks him to come. The couple then ask the motel manager to call the number back. No one answers. The Brannicks do not yet know that the call came from their own house. The next day, Nora meets with Karen, who says she was unable to find out anything useful about the other offers on the house. It was not a specific person but a company, so there are no names on the documents. Karen advises Nora to sell the house as soon as possible, because the Watcher, whoever he is clearly not going to stop. Karen is even willing to act as their real estate agent and sell the house as quickly as possible, over the weekend. But they would have to lower the price by $500,000. Dean does not like the idea of selling the house. They put everything they had into it. On the other hand, the man knows he must support his wife. Theodora Birch is convinced that Dean needs to get to the truth, otherwise it will never stop haunting him. Nora thought about it for a long time and eventually came to the conclusion that it is too early to give up. She is scared, but that does not mean they should abandon everything and run at the first sign of trouble. Dakota offers to watch their house at night for $20 an hour until things settle down. They are completely satisfied with the offer. After receiving contact information for the previous owner of 657 Boulevard from Birch, Dean meets with Andrew Pierce. Andrew can give him only one piece of advice: if he values his family, he should run from that house. Dean wants to know what exactly is going on. Andrew explains that he and his wife Rose, a cellist, were going through a difficult time after the birth of their son Caleb. Rose fell into a depression and could no longer play the cello. Andrew decided that moving to the suburbs would be good for his wife. That is how they found the house at 657 Boulevard, which at the time was being sold at a very attractive price. Everything was fine. Rose returned to playing the cello and became herself again. But then they came into their lives, the strange couple next door, Maureen and Mitch. At first they were very friendly and even offered to look after Caleb, so that Rose would have more time for herself. According to the couple, their son was already grown and no longer lived with them. From that moment on, Rose's problems returned. She began waking up at night and saying she could hear music. They called the police every day, but the searches led nowhere. Rose gave up the cello again and refused to look after the child. Since Andrew had to work a lot, he left Caleb with Maureen and Mitch. One day when he was putting his son to bed, Caleb said that in Mitch and Maureen's house there were many elderly people in red robes, performing a disturbing ritual. Of course Dean is skeptical about this story, considering Caleb was only 3 years old. But Andrew is certain his son did not make it up. He was gradually losing his mind and asleep. Soon after, the first letter from the watcher arrived. Andrew was convinced his neighbors had written it, even though they denied everything. Then more letters followed. Meanwhile the situation grew increasingly frightening. One day Maureen broke into their basement, supposedly through a hidden underground passage. Andrew searched for it, but never managed to find it. In the end the Pierces moved out and rented an apartment in the city, but Rose never fully recovered. One day she could not take it anymore and passed away voluntarily. Andrew finds it very difficult to talk about this. Dean is interested in something else, or rather someone, Jasper Winslow. Andrew says that the guy is completely harmless. When asked who they sold the house to, Andrew replies that it was some company. He just wanted to get rid of that cursed house as quickly as possible. Andrew advises Dean to do the same. While her mother and brother are asleep, Ellie slips out and secretly meets Dakota. If her father found out, it would be a huge scandal. By morning Ellie returns to the motel and slips back into her bed as if nothing happened. Pearl is deeply outraged that the Brannocks are cutting down trees on their property. Maureen in turn is outraged by the very loud work of the contractors handling renovations at 657 Boulevard. Dean makes it clear that in his own house he will do whatever he wants, and he does not care about the neighbors' opinions. The man also mentions a certain underground passage. Maureen says she has no idea what he is talking about. However, the trouble is only just beginning. Just like Andrew before him, Dean starts having problems at work. His boss Jack offers a partnership to a younger employee. Dean is upset. He had been counting on becoming a partner. He really needs the money. The man still cannot bring himself to tell his wife. But of course, when speaking to her husband on the phone before going to bed, Nora senses that something is wrong. She is still staying at the motel with the children. At night, Dean wakes up to the sound of gunshots. He is not sure whether it was a nightmare or not. In the morning Nora arrives with the children. Renovations are in full swing in the house. Suddenly they see that the neighbor's house is cordoned off by police, and they run there. It is reported that Mitch first took Maureen's life, and then his own. The couple's son blames Dean for everything, claiming that he supposedly wrote them a threatening note. Maureen had cancer and did not have long left, and Mitch did not want to live without her. Despite everything until the renovations are finished and Dakota installs the cameras, Nora and the children will continue to stay at the motel. That same night, the alarm goes off. Dean grabs a bat and walks through the house. Looking out the window, he sees Jasper smiling. Meeting with Birch, Dean tells her about his conversation with Andrew Pierce. Birch does not believe that Maureen and Mitch are occultists. There is evidence that Andrew is a pathological liar. Detective Rourke Chamberlain shares the same opinion. According to him, Andrew Pierce never filed any reports with the police about Maureen and Mitch, which means he made it all up. Suddenly Chamberlain asks Dean how the renovations in the house are going and how he plans to arrange the basement. Dean finds this suspicious. Why would Chamberlain be interested in the house? Birch suggests that it may not have been Mitch who fired the shots, but Maureen. Perhaps she could not bear the thought that after her death Mitch would remarry. In any case, this is only a theory. Birch did not find anything significant on the couple's son, Christopher. Whoever is writing the letters to the Brannocks has a direct view of their house. Now that Maureen and Mitch are dead, Jasper Winslow remains among the suspects. Birch, not entirely legally, dug up some information on him. Jasper was not always like this. Something happened to him in November 1995. Meanwhile, Karen continues to suggest to Nora that something is wrong with her marriage and her house. Nora shares that she is troubled by the fact that Dean is putting too much pressure on their daughter, not allowing her to wear makeup or dress brightly. Seizing the moment, Karen begins to suggest that Nora's husband has found a younger lover. Nora finds it hard to believe, but deep down doubts begin to creep in. One thing is reassuring: since the deaths of Mitch and Maureen, no more threatening letters have arrived. However, Karen still insists that the house should be sold as soon as possible. If anyone finds out about these letters, they will not sell the house for even $1. Karen shows Nora another house. It is not as luxurious as theirs, of course, but at least they will not be terrorized there by some unknown psycho. Besides, the price is $1 million less than what they would get from selling the house at 657 Boulevard. However, Nora cannot make any decisions without consulting her husband. The renovations in the house are almost finished. The relationship between father and daughter grows more and more strained, because Dean is trying to control Ellie's every step. However, the girl has something to hide: her secret relationship with Dakota. The renovations are overseen by John, a building inspector. Dean wants to be sure there are no issues with the house. John assures him that everything is fine and that they were lucky to find workers, because these days everyone is building, so there is a shortage of labor. John begins to reflect that people today are not what they used to be. Everyone wants to lock themselves in their own fortress and let no outsiders in. The conversation takes a strange turn. Dean does not like this man. Suddenly John mentions that he saw Dean's daughter talking to a young African American man. But they were not just talking, they were flirting. John believes that any father should know if something like that is happening, because he went through the same thing with his own daughter. Also, the man remarks how beautiful the house is. Back when people went to church, no one locked their doors. And now that people have stopped going to church, everyone locks their doors. John does not think that is a coincidence. From the workers, Dean learns that there is no building inspector named John in Westfield. Besides, inspectors usually do not come before the construction work is finished. Dean intends to find a new security company and fire Dakota. At work, the man cannot concentrate, thinking only about how their life has changed since buying the house. Birch calls Dean and asks him to meet urgently. Earlier, she went to the police station to see Chamberlain and requested access to old archives. There, Birch discovered something truly interesting. The house at 657 Boulevard had previously been bought by a family named Graff, who lived there until 1995. This story was never made public, not in any newspaper, not on any website. The head of the family, John Graff, was a devoted family man and a deeply religious person. One day he stayed late at work, could not get a taxi and decided to walk to the subway. On the way, he was attacked by a robber. After that incident, John decided to move his family to the suburbs. He had a son named Dale, an athlete and an excellent student, as well as a daughter, Pat. She was 17, but behaved like a 30-year-old, which worried John. His wife Helen liked to humiliate him in public. Since John's mother helped them buy the house, she also lived there. The woman constantly reproached her son, saying he was not trying hard enough. One day John, who worked as an accountant, was fired, and he began pretending that he went to work every day. But instead he went to the bank and secretly withdrew money from his mother's accounts. Everything began to fall apart when he found a letter in the mailbox with no return address, from someone calling himself the Watcher. Somehow the Watcher knew everything about John's family and about him personally. The letters kept coming again and again. The Watcher wrote that greed had brought John there. One day Pat threw a Halloween party at the house, which John did not like. He lost his temper and attacked the man his daughter was dancing with. It turned out to be her teacher. Dean wonders whether John had always been like this, or whether the house changed him. Birch does not think so, believing that John had simply become trapped in his own lies, and that whoever was writing the letters knew it. In the end, John could not withstand the pressure and began planning the death of his entire family. Before that, he cut himself out of all the family photographs. On the day Helen announced that she wanted to have an affair, John carried out his horrifying plan, taking the life of each member of the family. After that, John set the scene. He turned on the lights in every room and played music. The bodies lay in the house for 2 weeks, and no one suspected anything, until a neighbor, Jasper Winslow, heard music coming from inside. It was he who called the police. John disappeared without a trace, but that is not all that is strange. 11 days before the bodies were discovered, Pat's teacher from the Halloween party was found dead in his car. Dean is baffled as to why no one told him about any of this when he bought the house. Birch explains that the police covered everything up. This was before Chamberlain. The town did not want the story to become public. Many had a vested interest in preserving property values, since the town is considered one of the safest. Mitch and Maureen could not have been the authors of the letters, as they moved to Westfield a year after the incident. No one still knows where John is or whether he is even alive. Considering that he cut himself out of all the family photographs, no one knows exactly what he looks like. Dean has reason to believe that the man who introduced himself as a building inspector is in fact John Graff. Since the renovations are finished, Nora and the children are preparing to return, while Dean goes to the Winslows to speak with Jasper. Dean genuinely feels sorry for how he treated him. However, Pearl categorically refuses to allow the conversation and sends Dean away. Nora and the children are happy to be back home. The renovation looks like something out of a catalog. Dean still hides from his family the fact that he did not get promoted. Nora is convinced they made the right decision by staying. But not for long. When Dean takes the children to school, Nora finds another letter from the Watcher, who already knows that the Brannocks have installed cameras. Of course that will not stop him. When the man comes home from work, he finds his wife in tears. She asks how he could do this to her and their family, and shows him a flash drive. A week earlier, the couple had gone to the agency through which they bought the house. The agency was supposed to inform them about the letters, the crime that took place in the house, and everything else. The director of the agency, Darren Dunn, claims he knew nothing about it. And even if he had, the agency is not obligated to inform buyers unless they make a direct request. In the end, the couple has to leave empty-handed. At his office, Dean tries to find information about John Graff online, but to no avail. However, he manages to find a photo of Pat Graff in an old yearbook. At home, Dean continues his own investigation. He is constantly on edge, not understanding why Chamberlain gave them access to all that information about John Graff. Nora is concerned about something else. Her husband has completely stopped paying attention to her. Ellie sends Dakota provocative selfies. The girl carefully hides her infatuation from her father, although he clearly suspects something. However, when Dean sees Dakota and Ellie chatting and laughing near the house, he rushes to intervene and demands that his daughter wash off her eye makeup. Later, the man tells Nora and Theodora about a certain John who introduced himself as a building inspector. Everything points to the fact that this is John Graff. Nora does not like that her husband did not tell her about this right away. Lately he has become secretive. Birch, however, does not believe that it was the real John Graff. But even if we assume that it was indeed John Graff, then he is not the Watcher, because John, like the Brannocks and the Pierces, also received letters. Birch strongly advises them to pay attention to Dakota. The young man has a motive to terrorize them, since it benefits him. The Brannocks are paying him for the security system. Birch's assistant followed Dakota and found out that he likes video games. It is not entirely legal, but Birch's assistant also intercepted some data from Dakota's computer. His username in the virtual world is the Watcher. Now they have a suspect. Since Nora knows the password to their daughter's iPhone, Dean persuades her to tell him. Believing it is for the good of their child, Nora agrees. While they are all having dinner, Dean goes through his daughter's phone and finds her messages with Dakota, in which they exchanged provocative selfies. The man yells at his daughter and declares that from now on, she is grounded. Nora takes her husband's side. When Dakota comes to the Brannocks' house to replace a wire on the security camera that a squirrel chewed through, Dean lunges at the guy, accusing him of having an inappropriate relationship with Ellie and of sending them threatening letters. The girl calls the police, saying that her father attacked someone. The scandal draws the attention of all the neighbors. The police arrive, but this only makes things worse for Dakota, as it could cause problems for him regardless. The officer calmly explains to Dean that no crime has been committed, because Ellie is already 16. There is no evidence that Dakota has anything to do with the threatening letters. Besides, the guy is fully willing to cooperate and answer all questions. Pearl smiles smugly. When he gets home, the guy tells his mother that the family he was working for falsely accused him. Dakota and his mother go to the police station, where the guy provides a DNA sample to be compared with the samples from the envelope. Chamberlain tells the Brannocks that the DNA analysis will take 2 weeks. The results from the envelope will arrive next week. Dean is already tired of hearing the same thing from the police. Chamberlain only says that due to budget cuts, they cannot speed up the process. Ellie starts her own blog, where she talks about her father, whom she calls a tyrant and a racist who forbids her from seeing an African American. This could destroy Dean's career. The couple demands an explanation from their daughter because she knows perfectly well that he is not a racist. Ellie says she does not care. Nora's membership in the country club is suspended. Everyone now thinks they are racists. Karen tells Nora that this will affect their entire life. The consequences may be far more serious than they seem, because the internet never forgets. Ellie will not be able to get into a good college. Dean will most likely lose his job. Karen offers Nora the only way out, to divorce Dean and sell the house. In the mailbox, Nora finds an envelope. The same kind of envelope, with a flash drive inside, is received by Dean's boss, Jack. Someone installed a hidden camera in the Brannocks' bedroom. The video shows Dean sleeping, and a girl who looks like Pat Graff enters the room. Dean does not understand anything because all of this seems like nonsense and a setup. As he leaves the office, he notices Dakota and approaches him. The guy admits that he was the one who installed the camera in their bedroom and sent the video to Dean's boss, but Dakota denies hiring the girl who looks like the deceased Pat Graff for the staging. Dakota installed the camera only because he thought Dean was the watcher. The guy wanted to catch him, believing that Dean might have orchestrated all of this because of the financial difficulties he was drowning in. Nora has also watched the video and thinks that her husband is cheating on her. Dean tries to convince his wife that the watcher hired the girl to destroy their life. But Nora does not believe him and intends to file for divorce, as well as sell the house. The man has to stay at the motel where his family had previously stayed. In the evening eating takeout, he turns on the TV and sees Andrew Pierce in a commercial for a heart medication. He is an actor. Nora is broken, feeling that her life is falling apart. Dean spends the night in his car in front of the house to watch over his family. He notices Pearl staring intently from the window. Suddenly a car pulls up and drops off Mitch and Maureen, who were supposed to be dead. Dean cannot believe his eyes. Nora reviews the phone records and discovers that the ominous call to the motel came from their house. She urgently meets with Theodora Birch. Even the detective is confused by the video from their bedroom. Who is that girl, and how did she get there? However, that is not all. Someone called the motel from the Brannocks' house at 1 a.m. That night, only Dean was in the house. This makes Nora think that her husband is the watcher and the author of the letters. Perhaps this is how he decided to get rid of the house they cannot afford. Karen shows up at Mitch and Maureen's house, but not to find out what happened or whose bodies those were. The couple is not ready to discuss it anyway. Karen is there to offer her services as a real estate agent. After the incident, Mitch and Maureen's house has become in a sense stigmatized, so its value will drop by half. Barely holding herself back, Maureen says they are going through difficult times. If Karen shows up uninvited with an offer like that, then she has neither empathy nor tact. But Karen always gets what she wants. And right now she wants the house at 657 Boulevard. Birch, having already consulted a handwriting expert, tells Nora that there is a strong probability that Dean is the author of the threatening letters. Nora does not understand why Dean would do something like that to his own family. He was full of enthusiasm about moving to the suburbs. It was his dream house. Birch believes that Dean may simply have been playing along with his wife. He thought he could afford the house, but it turned out he could not. Birch has another piece of evidence in support of this theory. She went to the bank where they took out the loan, and found out that Dean had taken out another loan of $150,000 at a high interest rate to pay for the renovation and cover the mortgage. But that is not all the bad news for Nora. Theodora reports that Dean did not make partner. Thus he not only bought a house he cannot afford, but also sank into debt. Birch has no doubt that Dean is the watcher. He has an obvious motive. Meanwhile he is spying on Andrew Pierce. Noticing he is being followed, Andrew takes off running, but Dean catches up with him and tries to force him to admit he lied. Andrew confirms that he is an actor, but that does not mean he lied about Maureen and Mitch and everything else. Nora goes to the gallery. Her ceramics exhibition has been a success. Almost everything is sold. This is the first good news in a while. Nora thought that all the problems in her marriage were behind her, but she was wrong. Now she is at least sure that in case of a divorce, she will be able to take care of herself and the children. The woman ignores calls from her husband. Pearl approaches her and says that Mitch and Maureen are alive. She does not even know whose funeral she attended. Everyone saw the bodies being taken away. Tomorrow Pearl is hosting a lunch for Maureen and invites Nora as well. Maureen understands that everyone wants to know how it happened that they were declared dead when they are obviously alive. The woman says that their son Christopher became addicted to substances. On the day Maureen and Mitch left for Florida, Christopher found two people at a homeless shelter who were similar in build to his parents, lured them into the house and took their lives, all for the insurance payout. Maureen was sure that it was Christopher who had been sending the threatening letters to the Brannocks. Pearl admits that she thought it was her brother Jasper who was writing the letters, although she had no proof. He is so attached to that house at 657 Boulevard. Pearl also recalls that about 5 years ago she received a strange letter signed Ode to a House, a love letter to their home. Nora hears some noise coming from the next room and asks if someone is there. It cannot be Jasper because he is not home. Pearl only jokes that it is a lover. Nora no longer knows whom or what to believe. Ellie realizes that she treated her father badly. Her actions were impulsive and affected the whole family. Nora hugs her daughter, promising that together they will get through this. Out on the street, Dakota approaches Dean, asking him to just listen. The guy has reviewed all the footage from the Brannick's outdoor security cameras in order to find the license plate of the mysterious girl's car, but she not only did not arrive by car, she was not there at all. She did not appear anywhere outside. Together Dean and Dakota present Nora with all the evidence. There are only two possibilities: either the girl parachuted down and entered the house through a pipe, or she was already inside all along. Or there is some kind of passage leading inside that they do not know about. Nora gives her husband only one chance and asks him to answer honestly whether he wrote the letters. Dean admits that he wrote only the last one, he simply panicked. Nora already knows it was because of the loan. She just does not understand why Dean did not tell her that he had not made partner. Dean is very sorry, but he only wanted his family to have the very best. The man swears that he did not write the first two letters. The couple goes to the police station because the DNA results should already be ready. Chamberlain is clearly delaying on purpose, the only question is why. It turns out the results came in a week ago. No matches were found in the database, the only thing known is that the DNA belongs to a woman, although this clearly contradicts the content of the letters. For now Nora allows Dean to return home. Both Carter and Ellie are genuinely happy about it. Dean and Nora understand that they must act as one if they want to get out of this situation. According to the DNA results, neither Christopher nor Jasper sent the letters. Dean suggests that perhaps they should not rely on the DNA, it may not necessarily belong to the author of the letters. The simplest explanation is the most likely. Dean wrote the last letter in an attempt to make his wife give up the house. That means the Watcher has the same goal, he wants the house. Karen calls Nora and says she has found a buyer for the house, supposedly some company or developer. However, the Brannicks would have to sell it for $1,900,000, whereas they bought it for $3,300,000. Everything falls into place when Nora sees Karen and Chamberlain together at the country club. They are clearly lovers. Nora calls her husband and asks him to come immediately. Karen and Chamberlain are the Watcher, both of them. It is obvious that they orchestrated all of this in order to buy such a luxurious house for a fraction of the price. The Brannicks confront them in front of everyone. Karen and Chamberlain acted together, hiring someone to pose as a building inspector and John Graff, as well as a girl who looks like Pat Graff. As a detective, Chamberlain had all the information from the very beginning, while Karen persistently pushed Nora to sell the house. Perhaps Theodora Birch is also in on it, since it was Chamberlain who recommended her. Nora proposes a way out: pay off the second loan, then sell the house through another reliable agency, leave this place and return to a normal life. She is ready to put all the money from her exhibition into the loan, just to forget life in the house at 657 Boulevard like a bad dream. Ellie tells her parents what she managed to find online. It turns out that Ode to a House is a school assignment created by Roger Kaplan. The idea is to write a love letter to a house you like. The assignment became so popular that entire social media groups appeared, dedicated to declarations of love to houses. When Nora sees a photo of Roger Kaplan, she recognizes his face. This man was at the house showing. The workers discover a tunnel in the basement. Dean remembers that Andrew mentioned something like that. The couple enters the tunnel and sees a mysterious figure. They chase after it, while the figure runs from them. This leads them to a furnished underground bedroom, where someone is clearly living. The figure disappears behind a locked door. It is John Graff, working together with Pearl. But the Brannicks do not know this yet and go to the police station. Chamberlain refuses to help after what Dean and Nora caused at the country club. The couple only wants the police to sort everything out. Dean has already boarded up the entrance to the tunnel, but this is only a temporary measure. The tunnel may lead to all the neighboring houses. Such tunnels were used during Prohibition to distribute alcohol. Chamberlain says he will do the following: absolutely nothing. Birch denies that she told the detective anything. Theodora has no motive to harm the Brannicks and has no connection to Chamberlain or Karen. If Dean and Nora want to get to the truth, they will have to trust her. Because of her illness, Birch does not have much time left. Now she suspects Roger Kaplan. Birch has already spoken to his ex-wife Trish. They divorced 25 years ago. Roger left her for a former student. Trish said that Roger grew up in a poor, single-parent family, so he became obsessed with the luxurious homes of his friends. The boy wanted to become an architect, but could not afford college, so he took evening courses and became an English teacher. Roger's favorite hobby was driving around the area and showing Trish his favorite houses. He wanted one of those houses, especially the house at 657 Boulevard. Hoping that the owners at the time would understand his situation, Roger wrote them a heartfelt letter, telling them how he had dreamed of that house since childhood. But of course the house was sold to whoever paid more. Roger was devastated. It was during that period that he came up with the Ode to a House assignment. 10 years later, it became a trend. Students sent anonymous, sweet letters to the owners of the houses they liked. Later, Roger married Miko, one of his former students. But his obsession with houses did not fade. It only grew stronger. Every year, Roger sent letters to the owners of his 2 favorite houses, following their lives. Soon, however, the letters became threatening. They were signed The Watcher, and the author accused the residents of greed. The police were of no help. Birch and the couple go to see Carol Flanagan, who also received letters. Nora thinks it is not certain that Roger wrote the last letter. He definitely wrote the odes to the house, but the Watcher's writing style is different. Besides, Roger was interested in houses, whereas the Watcher is focused on the residents themselves. Carol is still convinced that after she divorced her husband, Roger decided to intimidate her and force her to sell the house. That house was one of his favorites. However, Carol was not afraid. Even if it is Roger Kaplan, there is no direct evidence. But the couple knows where he lives. They begin to follow Roger and his young wife, Miko. At a supermarket, they corner the Kaplans and demand that Roger stop terrorizing them. He says he has no idea what they are talking about. Ode to a House was just a school assignment meant to inspire students to take an interest in architecture. Roger admits that he was at the house showing, but only because a childhood friend of his used to live there and had recently passed away. Whatever Roger said before, the next day he shows up at the Brannocks' house and declares that he will not move, because they falsely accused him. And now Roger intends to become their worst nightmare, claiming that he is the Watcher. John Graff is part of Pearl's Historical Preservation Society. He does not like what is happening in the modern world. People have become soulless, and so have their homes. Dean knocks on the Winslow's door and asks Pearl for permission to check whether the underground tunnel leads directly into their basement. Since the police refuse to help, Dean is counting on the neighbors' cooperation. But Pearl also refuses to help, telling the man he should get his head checked. Dean loses sleep, feeling himself slowly going mad. He has nightmares of Roger Kaplan breaking in with a gun, demanding that they give him the house. Nora is convinced that for the sake of their children, for the sake of their family, they must sell the house and leave for good. This cannot go on. Seeing Roger talking to Maureen out on the street, Dean accuses them of working together, that there is also a tunnel in Maureen's house and that she gave Roger access. The woman does not understand what is happening at all. She was talking to Roger about her son. Mr. Kaplan was Christopher's teacher. To make amends, Dean invites Dakota to dinner. Being the father of a teenage daughter is truly not easy. Taking the opportunity, the couple also tells the children and Dakota about their decision to sell the house. A buyer is found quickly. Theodora Birch is happy for them. However, things are not going well for her. Her illness is progressing. Dean still cannot calm down without finding out the identity of the Watcher. The uncertainty is driving him mad. Nora asks her husband to stop and leave it behind. It no longer matters. However, the sale falls through after an article about the house at 657 Boulevard is published, mentioning the threatening letters, occult rumors and more. Karen made sure of that. She did it out of revenge. Now no one will buy the house. The Brannocks return to their old home in New York. Nora's career is on the rise, but 2 weeks have passed and there are still no buyers for the house, even at a reduced price. Moreover, Dean still cannot let it go and continues to build wild theories about John Graff. Nora explains to her husband that it is over, they have lost. The best thing they can do now is return to a normal life. However, Dean cannot simply accept defeat, feeling that the life of their dreams has been stolen from them. Nora can no longer listen about that house or about the Watcher. They must accept that the identity of the Watcher will remain a mystery forever. The couple visits Theodora Birch in the hospital. The cancer has spread, and it is irreversible. While Dean goes to a nearby store to get some Coca-Cola for Birch, Nora shares her concerns about Dean. Theodora understands this feeling well, an unsolved mystery that eats away at you day after day. Nora cannot take it anymore when Dean starts sending threatening letters to all their former neighbors. She demands that her husband apologize to everyone. But he sincerely believes that all those people deserve it. Nora just wants this to finally end. If this continues, their marriage may not survive. Nora intends to live a normal life, no matter what her husband thinks. Birch calls Dean and asks him to come to the hospital. The woman is very ill and exhausted, her days are numbered. Before she dies, Theodora wants to get something off her chest. Dean cannot believe it, when he hears that Birch was the previous owner of the house at 657 Boulevard. In that house, she wanted to start a new life after her divorce, but after she was diagnosed, she had to sell it. Birch felt that her personal paradise had been taken from her. It was horrible, terribly unfair. The woman wanted to get the house back, the one she had come to love so much at any cost, and she did everything she could to convince the Brannocks to sell it. Birch planned everything carefully, but now it no longer matters because she is dying. Seeing that this is driving Dean mad, Theodora decided to tell him the truth. He is a good man and deserves it. Birch hired an actor to pose as John Graff, and an actress who disguised as a worker, hid inside the Brannocks' house and entered Dean's room while he was asleep. As for Andrew Pierce, he is simply unstable and prone to paranoia. Birch knows nothing about Mitch and Maureen. Neither they, nor Karen, nor Chamberlain were involved. It was never about the Brannocks, it was about the house they bought. At a loss for words, Dean leaves Birch's hospital room. He tells his wife everything. Nora cannot process it. They trusted Theodora, they let her into their home. Dean comes to see Maureen with a bouquet of flowers to apologize for his behavior. The woman is going through a difficult time. Her beloved husband has died of an embolism, and her son is in a psychiatric hospital after taking the lives of 2 people. When Dean mentions that the letters were sent by Theodora Birch, the former owner of the house at 657 Boulevard, Maureen objects, saying that the previous owners were Samantha and Ted Forrest, a quiet elderly couple. No Theodora Birch ever lived in that house, at least not in the past 25 years. The Brannocks attend Theodora's funeral and offer their condolences to her daughter Nina. From Nina, the couple learns that her mother lied about being the watcher only so that Dean could find peace of mind. Ellie continues seeing Dakota, but now she no longer has to hide it from her parents. Their life has improved after returning to New York. There is more good news. A buyer has been found for the house, willing to pay $2,750,000. It will not cover the full cost of the house, but it is the best they can get. The buyer is some kind of company. Pearl's Historical Preservation Society is expanding. Maureen recently widowed, Roger Kaplan, who has loved old houses since childhood, and William Webster, who previously introduced himself as John Graff, have joined it. He is interested in keeping the town the way it is meant to be. Webster's face seems familiar to Roger. He asks William how his family is doing. William says that he works at the local public library, so many people might recognize his face. The house at 657 Boulevard has a new owner. Officially, the Preservation Society cannot interfere in other people's lives, but Pearl is willing to do anything to ensure that houses retain their original appearance, even if it means putting pressure on the owners. The new owner of the house at 657 Boulevard is Karen. She has wanted this house for a long time and plans to renovate it to her taste. Nora shows up uninvited. Karen was expecting this moment. Now it is completely clear to Nora that Karen was the one terrorizing them in order to get the house at a reduced price. Her motive is obvious. From the very beginning she did everything to convince them to sell. Karen feels no remorse, saying that Nora is to blame herself for making a fuss over some stupid letters. Now Karen intends to live Nora's best life. However, Nora has a feeling that things will not go the way Karen wants, and she warns her to be careful. Nora does not threaten her directly, but she clearly says that she will be watching. Pearl and Maureen welcome Karen and bring her pies as a gesture of goodwill. Karen makes it clear that she will not eat their pies and that she does not care about the local community. The woman has no intention of befriending the neighbors. That same night, the home phone rings. While Karen is distracted, someone turns on the water in the bathtub, and it overflows. She is sure that Nora did it. The woman calls Chamberlain and asks him to come, but by this time they have already broken up, so he refuses. Moreover, the breakup was very bad, so Chamberlain intends to do everything he can to make sure the police do not help her. Karen's dog starts barking loudly in the basement, which makes her even more afraid. The woman is sure that someone is in the house. However, she cannot find anyone, and after cleaning up the mess from the flood, tries to fall asleep, when suddenly strange noises are heard. Karen opens the dumbwaiter and sees a letter from the watcher inside, who accuses her of greed and promises that this will not be his last letter. She sees her dog dead and screams. A dark figure is watching her. Karen runs out of the house in terror. Several weeks pass. Dean undergoes psychotherapy. The past year has been difficult, but they have found the strength to move on. At least that is what Dean says. Karen, by the way, sold the house cheaply, having not even stayed there for 48 hours. The therapist senses that Dean still cannot let go of the past. Everything, one way or another, comes back to the house at 657 Boulevard. The man admits that this is true. He has the feeling that someone played a cruel trick on them and got away with it. Roger walks with his wife Miko and sees a new family moving into the house at 657 Boulevard. Like all the previous residents, they think it is the house of their dreams, but not for long. The watcher will never back down. Dean, watching the house, meets the new owner Ben and introduces himself as John. The man lies, saying that he lives a few blocks away, and promises Ben that they will see each other again. As Dean is about to leave, he notices Ben checking the mailbox. Nora calls her husband and asks where he is. Dean says he is stuck in traffic, not knowing that his wife is watching him. The case of the watcher remains unsolved.